back to some more Sims 4 Create a Sim here on the channel. This particular series is the D&D Create a Sim, where I turn my D&D characters into Sims, or try to get them as close as how I sort of have envisioned them. I also have been including little pictures of the drawings of my characters, the ones that I drew for myself, and that's sort of, those drawings have been sort of what I'm basing them off of. Obviously, the drawings don't have color, so the Sims versions are the first time that they're fully getting colors. And though I have a color scheme, I'll omit some characters. There are certain details that I'm like, I'm pretty sure I wanted this color, but I'm not entirely sure. So Sims is sort of a nice way to play around it. But then there's also some things that I really want them to look a certain color or a certain way, and then I can't get that color in the Sims, and it irritates me. So it's a little mix of both in that situation. But anyway, if you haven't seen the previous ones, there's a link down in the description below for you to be able to click on and actually go and catch any of the previous characters. This is the 6th character, I believe, if I am counting it in my head right. So if you are looking forward to this episode, let me know, and looking forward to seeing future ones. But anyway, for now, let's actually talk about this character. This character is Myrin. Tangor. He is a elf, but he's a particular type of elf that I came across of. I already had this idea in my head of like where he lived and the people, like his people and stuff. Also, side note, if you hear any fans and stuff like that, I've been having the issue recently where it's just way too hot in my room. I can't fully turn off things. I've been moving my mic closer in an attempt to try and make sure that my voice is louder than the fans. I think it's working for the most part. But yeah, so once I go into the editing process, my voice is loud enough that I can turn down the volume to where you don't hear the fans, or at least you don't hear them very well. But anyway, back onto the story of Myrin here. So basically, I seen him being in like this village that actually lived really close to the water side, and they actually were more of a working class of elf. And I actually found a sub race of elves that fit very, very well, because it actually talked about like fishing and like things like that with these elves, which are the Bishahar elf. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I can't pronounce normal words, let alone words that are like fantasy words or like really big words. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so he's that type of elf. I really love elves, so be prepared to see quite a few elves. We're only 6 characters in, and I have a snow elf, the Bishar elf, and a half elf. 6 characters. I really like elves. But I will say I broaden my horizons a little bit more as time goes on, and you'll actually start seeing like quite a few different cast of characters coming to this pretty recently. With these ones that I'm going through now, if you've watched, especially if you've watched Eva's, I actually talk about how starting with Eva onto what will be the 10th character, but technically the 9 in this group, I based off of the evolutions to sort of get a bearing of like D&D and like some of the races and the classes, and I purposely tried to make sure that every single one of these characters were a different class, they were a different race, and so on and so forth. Even if some of their races are similar, like I do have, you know, the half-elf and this elf, and I eventually have another snow elf, but it's a snow elf Azamar, so the Azamar part is more of the important part of that race than it is just being the fact that the snow elf is the other half. But anyway, so yeah, after these group was sort of to get used to things, but I did make sure that they were all different races, so that's fun. But anyway, Myrin here is actually representing Jolteon, and again, it is very loosely based. I will say, as far as the colors go with Myrin here, they're, especially the Sim version, don't fit very well, but I have 1 or 2 pieces of armor in the Sims, and then I think the Sims naturally comes with one. The Sims one looks more little too much costumey to what I want, and then the one that I chose that I thought felt like fit the best didn't have necessarily all the colors on it, because in like the drawing and stuff I have like little etchings on the armor. I almost wanted those to be in gold. I wanted a lot of the armor to be silver, because armor in the most part is usually represented with silver, or you know, more of those grayer silvery tones, and like some black and gold accents. But obviously, you know, I'm limited to what CC or what is in the game, and the armor that I really liked on him and I thought fit the most didn't have an option. I mean, it had an option that had gold on it, but one, I had used that for Talos, which was in my recent series, so I really didn't want to use that, but also just because I actually wanted like some whites and blacks into the mix as well, so I chose a different color variant of that. Also, you notice that this is probably going a lot slower than usual because of the fact that I actually wasn't scouring around for clothing for a really long time, and I had a pretty good quick direction with him. Obviously, also my males, they just don't have many options. Even with CC involved, there is not a whole lot of options for the males, so a lot of times my male creative sims tend to go, I end up finishing them quicker, so I just don't usually speed theirs up as much. With Myrin here, I actually couldn't speed his up much at all to make it be the length of where I'm sort of wanting these videos, because I go into talking about their backstories, and I realized early on with Nita and Eva that it's gonna take me a little bit of time, but not like, it's not like super long. I'm acting like it's like super long, but it's not. But you know, some of my creative sims can be as small as 6 minutes. These ones definitely probably never will be just 6 minutes, just because of the whole talking about the backstory and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, so as far as the info about Myrin here, Myrin comes from, like I was saying, a little elf village town, but they're more of a hard-working elf. They, fishing is a big part of what makes their town prosperous. His father is one of the actual, like, head fisherman, but at one point his father did actually like help in like an army at some point in time, so like he had like stuff from his years of like battle and things like that, but had settled down to this peaceful life in this village with his family. But Myrin tended to be a lot more hyper than most kids his age, and even into his teen years and adult years of an elf. He kept that very hyper mentality. He would run around everywhere. He would pretend fight with trees and like punch them and stuff, because obviously he didn't have anything himself, or use little sticks to pretend like they were swords. And as he got older, he ended up playing with like a lot of the kids and like entertaining the kids and stuff like that. And he didn't really like having to try to do the hard work of the town, which, you know, his family definitely would have wanted him to do. And he did try to help, but he does find work in some ways boring. Like, he knows it needs to be done and he will do it, but he will try to do it as fast as possible so he can get it done and over with. Also, he's just very hyper, so he just does it as fast as possible. So that's sort of like his whole thing. He sort of wants to get out there and go travel and stuff like that, to actually use this pent-up energy, basically, and see the world and stuff. This is the armor. I don't know if my voiceover is going to line up exactly, but that armor actually wasn't too bad. I was remembering a different armor, I think, but it just didn't color-wise go the way I wanted it to. Anyway, side note. So yeah. And eventually a group of travelers came into his town, which would, in this case, be like the story I would go with for them. Like, especially if they ended up being NPCs, if like I ever tried to DM, it would be in Eva, Fee, Via, and Itzel. So he ends up actually leaving with them. His dad gives him some of his old armor and stuff like that. Like, they accept this decision that he's made, and they understand it, so they're supporting him by giving him like hand-me-down stuff. Eventually, obviously, he would get armor and things of his own as time goes on. But yeah, so and he takes off, and they actually leave through ship this time. That's why they sort of was in this town, to get towards the water. So he gets on the ship with them, and they go traveling, and he finally gets to go travel. He isn't sitting in one place all the time. He isn't having to do this menial work that is the same old every single day. And that's basically his whole thing with why he wanted to leave the village. He was tired of doing the same old all the time. Now, his class is a fighter, and he is an Eldritch Knight. I did want him to have, like, a fighter mentality of, like, just straight-out fighter, but Eldritch Knight gives you some, like, more spells and things like that, and obviously, if with being influenced by Jolteon slightly, I would give him more spells leaning towards lightning, storms, things like that. So, that was the whole direction with him. Now, as far as the Sims lore that we are going to go into, I did make him a friend of the world just because I do see him as a very happy-go person, someone who's very, like, okay to talk with people, very much wanting to meet new people, meet new types of races, and, like, all this stuff, and just sort of know people, and, like, be there to help people and stuff like that. Yeah, he's a fighter, yeah, he's super hyper, and maybe some people he comes off as too much, but... you know, that's just him. So, but I do see him as a very, very nice person overall. As far as his traits, as I've mentioned in previous ones, I do want to use a mod that will hopefully allow me to give them 5 traits, just to give them even more personality, more things going on with them, because part of the whole putting them all in the same household together and seeing what happens is to just see these different personalities, these different people actually interact with each other naturally. So hopefully I will get to give them 5 traits. Hopefully that mod will be working when I go to actually record that, but only time will tell. But the traits I would be liking to give him is active, goofball, adventurous, cheerful, and childish. The main 3 that I would focus on if I couldn't use that mod is active, goofball, and adventurous, which you probably noticed them potentially in the video, because they're the ones that I go ahead and give them just in case I can't get the mod to work. I make sure the main 3 that I want to use are the main first ones that I put. But anyway, I hope you like this video. If so, hit that lovely like button, subscribe, you know, all that lovely YouTube goodiness. Let me know what your thoughts on Myrin are. I actually am really happy with how he turned out. Part of... because I knew he was going to be blonde and he was going to have, like, the skin tone he was going to be, and he's going to obviously have elf ears. I was a little concerned that he might give, like, Legend of Zelda Link vibes after making him. But I don't think he gives Link vibe too much. Maybe to just someone who randomly doesn't, like, fully look at fantasy and stuff like that. Maybe they would just automatically assume Link, but who knows. But anyway... I hope you like how he turned out. I'm pretty happy with him. Obviously, I wish the armor could have a little bit more gold in it, but I wanted a more decorative armor, and I did want a lot of whites in there as well. So, the armor I chose, I think, fit better for how I was looking. I did add a piece on the shoulder to try to get some gold in there, but yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Until then, bye-bye!